That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Creed 3, the directorial debut of Michael B. Jordan, and also the 9th film in the Rocky Balboa franchise, which MGM and United Artists released on March 3rd, 2023.
The first two films I have not seen.
Of Creed and Creed 2 from 2015, which was directed by Ryan Coogler, and Creed 2 in 2018 by Stephen Capel Jr.
So we paid to see this one. Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was okay. I think that it has some good things going for it, and I think as far as the script story department, it suffers quite a bit. It's incredibly predictable, and I think does a disservice to its villain because my allegiance was probably with the wrong person.
It's well made and the acting is good, but yeah, the story...
It could have, for what they're trying to do is in, somebody having to take a back seat in their own life, they could have done in so many more interesting ways.
I agree. So the basic story is we see that Michael B. Jordan's character Adonis has retired. So he's like 3 or 4 years into retirement. When one day he also like helps run a boxing training gym where one of his boxers is actually currently I have a question about the weight class because the size of all of these boxers varies wildly. There's one guy who looks like Thor boxing a little guy who looks like Bad Bunny. I don't understand how they're doing this.
Felix is kind of the crown in his, or the jewel in his crown, who I believe is an actual real life boxer.
Yeah. But we can get to that. So anyway, one day while Michael's leaving the gym he runs, Adonis, this guy is pressed up on his Rolls Royce like he might rob him, and we see that it's actually a childhood friend who's been locked away for 18 years. So we learned that 18 years prior, back in 2002, Adonis and this guy Damian, who it's important to know Damian was the highest rated amateur boxer and Adonis was his little assistant. Adonis got into a fight with a guy, and we'll explain who the guy is because the movie drags it out for way longer than I think it should. Mm-hmm. Adonis gets into a fight with a guy in front of a liquor store as a teenager, and Damian jumps in with a gun. But Damian had priors, and when the police roll up, they see Damian holding a gun, and he gets sent to prison. So now he's back, and we find out that all he wants from his friend Adonis is a chance to be get into a title fight. Mm-hmm. And Adonis is I can't do that, but you can come train at my gym. But Damian's not playing. He really wants to fight the champion. So there is a fight scheduled for the current champion with another guy, Thor. And Damian pulls some Tanya Harding shit and has Thor injured so he can't fight. So they need to find a boxer at the last minute. And of course, who do they choose? This guy who isn't even a pro, Damian. Damian fights Bad Bunny and wins.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, and then they all act like during the 2016 presidential elections. We didn't think what would happen if the person we didn't want to win.
Yeah. So... Of course, Damian starts acting real loose and crazy and telling anyone who will listen that Adonis is a fraud. He ain't shit. His mama ain't shit. He's just talking real crazy. So Adonis gets on TV one day, on a live sports show, and Damian calls in live and they get into a little verbal altercation, and Adonis challenges him to a fight because he believes that's the only way they can squash this beef. So, of course... The final 30 minutes is a montage of Adonis training along with Damian, and then the final fight. And of course, Adonis wins. And then
goes till the 12th round.
I have questions about that. But yeah, Adonis wins, and then while they're in the back, in the locker room, they have a heart-to-heart, and they squash their beef at the end. Mm-hmm. Before I get to my notes, like you alluded to, I think the better story would have been something a little more thrilling. I had said a single white female, you mentioned Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which probably makes more sense. Mm-hmm. Where it's Damian would have come back from prison, wiggled his way into Adonis's life, and then we see that like initially he's happy to be back and he's happy for the opportunities, but really he's hating on Adonis and he's trying to sabotage him to get a chance to be the champion. And then maybe everything culminates with like a fight between Adonis and Damian that isn't in the ring. Mm-hmm. Something that would be like unpredictable.
Well, because this really is a Cinderella story that granted it's manufactured. Damian manufactures a scenario where he can have a shot at being in the ring, but that still seems too contrived, and the stakes never feel high enough. It's like, yes, I think Adonis did his friend dirty by basically ghosting him for 18 years. Like, you never wanted, this man was like a brother to you in this group home, and you never wondered about him. Like, that's dirty. But also, those stakes still aren't high enough to justify what happened.
I agree, especially after Damian wins the championship, because that's like at the halfway point. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, now, because we see him living in like a lavish penthouse and he has hoes, and so it's like, so you're winning now. Mm-hmm. Like, you literally won. So now it just feels like, well, any beef y'all have, it's not going to be like, it's just real loose and crazy talk. So I felt, the stakes were really low.
It's like clearly neither of them are making the most conducive choices to kind of getting over what happened in the past. But I think Adonis is especially egregious because as soon as that fight with Felix goes down, he confronts him in public and gets punched, and that's when he decides to come out of retirement. It's like
Adonis confronts Damian.
Yeah, and it's like, you needed to pull him aside. And he's also just learned information that his stepmother, Phylicia Rashad, Marianne, had hidden these letters from Damian all these years, which includes a picture that is key information that shows that
Damian was responsible for the Tonya Harding stuff.
Right.
And then right after Phylicia Rashad shares the letter, she dies of a stroke.
Yeah. But of course, it's like, we're told her
her
organs are failing, but she's like, she just looks like she's lying on a couch.
Yeah, she looks great just sitting down, and all of a sudden she's dead.
It is nice to see her, but I almost get the sense of like, I'm not coming back for a fourth one.
What did I like? A lot of things. I think I really liked the young girl who played Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson's daughter. Mm-hmm. And
Amara, Mila Davis Kent, I think.
And like, I thought she was really cute, and a plot point for her and Tessa Thompson. So Tessa Thompson's character is she in the other movies?
Yes.
Oh, mm-hmm. I didn't know that. Apparently she's like a singer, but she's losing her hearing. And then we see that their daughter is deaf. So everyone in her life, like the parents, speak sign language. I really liked that touch, and I thought the young girl was really cute. Mm-hmm. There's a scene where she's at school, and she's just drawing, minding her own business, and some other girl rolls up to her, grabs her painting, rips it in half, and I was like, no! And then what does little Amara do? That girl gets up and knocks the shit out of that girl. I thought that was funny.
I mean, violence is not the answer, but, you do some things, and you shouldn't be surprised if you get
Then we cut to her parents showing up to the school. And it's funny how, like, clearly Adonis is more like, well, she needs to defend herself. And the mom is like, no, we need to figure I thought that was well done. So the way Damian, he straight up asks Adonis, like, you need to give me this opportunity to fight. And then they bring up Apollo Creed and how Apollo Creed gave an unknown, like Rocky, an opportunity to fight. And that's kind of what makes Adonis agree.
But I feel so, the fight that happens with Felix, I feel so bad for Damian because he walks in, there's no entourage. In fact, I think he's maybe even getting booze. Nobody cares about him. It just, you gave him this opportunity, but you don't see that this man is hungry. You being for this.
Adonis,
yes. Like, and also you aren't checking for him at all. Like, no one's there to care for this person. And I wish bad for him.
I wish they would have the final conversation, like at the end of the movie. I feel like that conversation should have happened in the beginning,
right?
To lull. But well, again, I thought this could have been more thrilling. Is like, because the minute we meet, we see Damian riding the bus. Mm-hmm. He shows up at the gym. He looks like he's going to rob Adonis. So from the get-go, it feels like there's something not quite right. And I wish that I would have been lulled into a sense of security. Like I didn't know that Adonis never contacted Damian like the entire time he was in prison. I feel like that could have been the gag halfway through. And that explains why Damian's acting crazy.
I just think the way everybody's reacting about him, including Phylicia Rashad, Wood Harris, who is playing the trainer, Little Duke, it's just like, but you're just not gonna give this person a chance at all.
Well, and then because Adonis doesn't want to talk about Damian and the fight that led up to his incarceration, it's like not everyone has all the information. But I also feel like, especially his wife, I'm going to need to know a little bit more because Damian does let it slip to Tessa Thompson's character that like the altercation that resulted in his incarceration involved a guy named Leon. And I just feel like Tessa didn't know that her husband had been in a group home. I just feel like there's a lot of communicating that's not happening. Okay, getting to the weight class.
When you see Jonathan Majors next to Felix, is like, I don't think this...
Or Drago.
Yeah.
The really handsome... I mean, it's just like, what? That man was like a foot taller than Felix and much bigger. Because that man's bigger than Damian. What are the rules for boxing? I don't understand.
Well, there are weight classes: a welterweight, heavyweight, featherweight.
Felix looks like he might weigh like 160, and Drago looks like he probably weighs like 250.
And isn't that from Creed 2, the son of Dolph Lundgren's character? Because that's the whole plot synopsis.
What?
That's the Dolph's in Creed 2. That's the whole plot synopsis of his character's son.
Dolph Lundgren is in Creed 2?
Yes.
Oh.
His son is fighting, of course, Apollo's son, Adonis.
Oh, I didn't know that. So that guy, Drago, was in the last movie?
I think that's the same character.
Oh. Yeah, I was very confused by how big... Damian's so much bigger than Adonis.
Yeah, it seems... you have pause watching it visually, like, I don't know.
Even the way it's shot, it's like... You could have made efforts to make them seem more equivalent, but it's like very obvious that one is much bigger than the other.
Well, even watching Jonathan Majors face off with Michael B. Jordan... he just watching him like whipping at him in the ring in the final scenes, like he's intimidated. He just.
I didn't think
bigger.
Adonis had a chance.
I didn't think so either, and I think it's kind of this film was written by Zach Balin, who wrote King Richard, and Ryan Coogler's brother Keenan Coogler, and I think that it's called Creed 3, so you know he's not going to lose, which I think it does a disservice because it just feels like such a cheap shot that at the last hour of the last minute he does the 1-2 punch and knocks Damian down.
I thought it was funny that there are two scenes where Tessa doesn't know like where her man was and doesn't know much about
she's quizzing him. Yeah.
I'm like, you don't know what your man is up to ever. Well, that's how it goes. Okay, the Leon story. So the film opens with Adonis and Damian as teenagers driving around, and then the fight happens at the liquor store, and then we get like I think 2 flashbacks about the fight. And then we finally learned that Leon was this guy who lived in the group home. Like, I guess he was like the one in charge of them who would like physically abuse them. So, and then we find out that all Damian did was pull out a gun. The way they drug that shit out and the amount of time Damian served, I was 100% certain that they had killed that man.
Yeah, for 18 years, and plus he said he had 2 years tacked on. That's a long time for a couple priors.
And like you didn't do any... I don't know. I thought that they dragged that story out way too long for it to just be like, okay. All he did was like whip you a few times and then you pulled a gun out. Okay.
And another line that's repeated is about, it's not, boxing isn't about violence, but it's about time and control and focus. And I get that this is trying to lean into that as kind of a subtext for what's going on, but I don't think it does it in an intelligent way.
Well, I don't, if I had to say something about that, I would say that it's not given enough time. It's just basically like, well, because it's established that Damian is a fighter. Like he says, I spent all that time in prison training. And then of course, Adonis is a successful fighter. So I guess it makes sense to me that we don't spend a lot of time with them with the skill of boxing. Like that's fine with me. So then of course we get the training montage, speaking of, which, you know, I can see how people like it because it is kind of like, yeah, like building up to something. But then because it's so predictable.
It's so predictable.
The final fight is stylized in a way that was interesting because we get moments where the two fighters, Damian and Adonis, are looking at each other at opposite ends of the ring, but they're seeing their child versions, the child versions of themselves. And then we also, it's almost like they're in the dream state, because the entire like stadium is empty while they're fighting.
Like it's just them. It's just these two people.
Which was kind of like mesmerizing. And, you know, there are moments when they get punched and the sweat flies in slow motion. That looked cool. But then it was very jarring because all of a sudden we find out, oh, it's the 12th round. And the montage is not that long.
The film doesn't exhaust us, yeah.
No, so that's what I wrote down. It doesn't feel like it's exhausting enough because I've watched, like when I was younger, I'd watch fights with my dad. And when those dudes go 12 rounds, they look it.
And you kind of feel it watching that.
And you feel exhausted. These two look great by the 12th round. Yeah, I mean, they have a couple bruises, but I was surprised that they did not seem more exhausted.
And I think that's exactly what this film is doing. It's cutting too many corners when we should be feeling... And again, I think the more compelling story is that of Jonathan Major's Damian. And that the shift needs to at least have some equanimity between them. I don't know.
I think that more focus should have been placed on Damian and sort of, you know, I don't think this film feels like it's making him out to be a villain.
Yeah, and I don't think
he's a villain.
I don't like that at all.
My final note was, I don't think Amara, their daughter, should have been at the final fight.
Well, especially because Bianca, Tessa Thompson, keeps like shielding her.
Because Tessa Thompson's like really against violence. Then there's one scene where we find out that Amara has been watching her dad's fights. Secretly, like her mom doesn't want her looking at fights. But then you take her to a fight where her dad might be badly injured. Wouldn't that be traumatizing?
Kind of, yeah.
I thought that was odd for a mother who seemed really protective of her daughter seeing violence to then be like, oh, the one fight you can see is in real life with your dad getting his ass whooped. But okay.
And I wanted a little more. They just hint at it where Damian picks up on, since she's trying to retain what hearing ability she has, she's stopped performing herself and she writes for other people and produces other artists. And there's a scene where we see this like label party for this woman singing a song she wrote. And clearly she's, you know, performing along in the sidelines, and he said, how does it feel to have somebody sing your song? And I like those elements, and I wish it kind of played up more on that.
That's why I think the film should have been more about Damian being a part of Adonis's life, because we even see like Damian taking the bus home. Oh, the one scene I really didn't like was when we see Damian in his apartment and he's kind of acting crazy in the way it just felt a little,
and washing his socks in the sink.
Yeah, it's too overt. I really wanted to be blindsided by the fact that Adonis did his friend so dirty. But it's just so clear from the beginning. For all of what I said, I think I would give the film 2.5 out of 5, which means it's fine. It's like 2.5 pushing 3.
Yeah, I agree. There's more that I liked than didn't like, but it cuts too many corners. The score also drove me crazy from Joseph Shirley. I thought that was leading us way too hard in way too many scenes in I think kind of lazy ways. But other than that, I like the two leads quite a bit. It's always nice to see Phylicia Rashad, so I would also give it 2.5.
Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.